Hello, you lovely lot. I have got a special treat for you today. We have the lovely Claire Clements, and she is going to introduce herself and explain to her what she does, and then we can look at what that is and what that means.
Hiya, thank you for
Hi,
having me,
Claire.
Amanda. So I'm Claire from Positive Pants, and I am a positive mindset mentor and just about to become officially an author. So lots of very exciting things happening at the moment for me.
Well, that sounds really exciting. And you know, the title of my little things is So What Is? So my question to you is, what is a positive mindset mentor?
Well, it's a name that's evolved actually over the years, trying to find exactly, a really good way of describing what I do. So everyone calls me Miss Positivity, and I do a lot of group work and particularly one-to-ones with children. And I do this in a kind of really creative way, and it's focusing on growing their brain. So how we can actually access the brain into more of a growth mindset. And with obviously the name Positive Pants, we are doing the kind of real focus on a positive mindset. So we're working with children who might not necessarily have issues, a lot of early intervention and prevention stuff. But often, the parents that kind of come to me are parents of children who, have started to notice a change in their behaviours. They may be anxious, not sleeping. They might not be able to deal with their emotions very well. So what I do is I work with children on a one-to-one basis, predominantly, to really tap into that individual child, what it is they like, what sparks them with joy, and then actually use those things to teach them about their own emotional literacy and resilience. So what can we use with the things that they're already interested in to really tailor it to that child? So it could be arts and crafts, it can be creative activities, but also whilst demonstrating the ways that we can, tap into that positivity when we're feeling a little bit low.
And I've noticed from some of your posts, which I'll obviously put, links and things up underneath later on, but I have noticed from some of your posts, there is a real tendency towards a creative element in the work that you do.
Definitely. I think with children, I am creative myself. And I feel that with children, just sitting there talking to them isn't enough to get it through. We all learn in very different ways. I was never somebody that could sit and stare at, I was going to say blackboard, showing my age, but blackboard or whiteboard and just absorb that information. I needed that experiential learning, so I needed to feel it, I needed to see it, hear it, touch it, whatever that might be. So for me, it's a very natural thing to use the creative process, the hands-on, to do that. And that could be through a board game. Usually what I try and do is empower the child to do it themselves. So, often they will make up their own board game, and we would then demonstrate the kind of, the kind of path that we take in life and the choices that we have, just as an example. But yeah, it's about them actually engaging in the activity so that they've got a real visual and a hands-on thing to then remember the kind of concepts and theories later on, sort of long after I've left the room, hopefully.
Yeah, and it is, it is important. And I mean, it's really nice to talk to you, because I'm quite often, apart from the TAM stuff, which is a lot of early intervention and prevention, my one-to-one work is right at the other end. It's a lot later, scooping up when opportunities have been missed. And I had a colleague call them the lost boys earlier on in the week, and girls. So I sort of scoop up these lost children that have slipped through the nets, and it's really nice to see some of the things that can have an impact much earlier on. And much like yourself, that's what we aim to try and find, something where you can be creative and have a creative element. So why has this been so important to you?
I think it's from my own story, as it often is. I think for me, I wasn't aware of any issues when I was younger, very young, particularly, although I had some pretty significant big life events happen to me. I kind of coped with them okay, or so I thought, until my teens, and then other stuff happened. And hormones kicked in, and I got diagnosed with my diabetes, so that then affected my hormones as well, and I became quite ill. And that was at the time when I got my first bout of what I would call depression. And things were pretty bad, really, really bad. And at the time, I didn't know of any other route out other than the actions that I took. And kind of having a daughter myself, so I've got Ellie, who's 10 and a half now. You know, I felt that pressure as a parent when I had her of, you know, how can I help her? You know, to prevent her doing that same sort of thing or going down that route. There must be stuff out there. And so that was kind of, I've channeled all of my experiences, I guess, into that mission. And it kind of started with the idea of a product, which was Positive Pants. So actual physical pants, which I have here. I can show you a pair, show you my pants. So these are the boys. And the unique thing about them was, I wanted a tangible thing that I could give to my child or other children before they got to the stage that I had. And those pants, they all have positive affirmations on them. So scientifically they work because they act as an anchor for that child in the morning to put them on and to keep that message and reminder throughout the day. But I wanted it to be more than that. I wanted it to be more of a way of life rather than just accessing it when you've got a product. And that's where then I sort of started to combine my creative talents with you know, responding to what children needed. And I've always had quite a good intuition, a good instinct of what that is for each individual child. So just, I suppose, just compiling all of those different elements, and I've created Positive Pants. So
it's amazing. And you know, it does tie in. I mean, I've just printed this off this morning because of something that I was looking at. So the British Medical Journey have released a longitudinal study that they've done on how adolescent mental health difficulties impact education and attainment.
Right.
And I haven't read it properly, I've just skimmed it, but it's actually really interesting. And I mean, I'm not going to get on my soapbox about what I think about these things because we'd be here all week and it's not about me. I think, you know, the more we can come up with that does tap into that creativity and those elements that aren't really as heavily focused as they were maybe when we were at school. We used a lot more creative elements and free-flowing ideas and being able to develop things. And I think the education system, you know, while individual teachers try very hard, I think the structure means that level of exploration and creativity could be extended further. So having something, I think, you know, that can bring that out for children that maybe need more of it than they're getting, and not all children will, but some children will. You and I would have done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we've
just
both
think
got
where
that
we'd be if we'd have had that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've made a life where we can do it when we want. So some people might say that's too much inner child, but I'm good with that.
I love my inner child. Look at my office. I mean, I'm just happy.
Toys. We've got toys everywhere. I've got slots and toys. I've got a desk full of toys as well to keep me in my seat, fiddle toys. So how do you actually do it? What do you actually do with the child and the young person?
So I work in the one-to-one sessions. It's normally a minimum of 8 sessions. And the first one is all about getting to know that child and building up the trust, because for some children that does take a little bit of time. So, you know, there's opportunities for them to get to know me, for me to get to know them. Based on that, I then send them a welcome pack or give them a welcome pack if it's face-to-face. So they get their Positive Pants t-shirt, so they're part of a family. You know, there's that trust there's that bond. And then they get lots of different equipment that we'll use throughout the sessions. Sometimes we use it all, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we go off on a complete tangent and use none of it because of the nature of the work. But that's kind of how it starts off. And then depending on what is coming up for that child in the sessions, that depends on what activity we will do. There are some activities that I do frequently, but they still end up being completely different every single time. Sometimes I will use different resources. As you know, I use Tam's Journey in my sessions with children. And they love it. And, you know, again, some children will sit and talk about, and they'll draw a poster about the fight, flight, freeze. You know, some of them will draw the gingerbread man or whatever it is. So it's about using the right resource for that child. So we talk about things like, you know, people that they've got around them that they can go to, that who they trust and, you know, will always support them. We do work around self-esteem. We do work around, we always get them to sort of check in with how they're feeling, so that we get them used to noticing in their bodies when they're feeling something, and what can we do to tap into that at an early stage. So instead of it sort of bubbling up and getting the anger response, what can we do when we notice those feelings are coming upon us, or what are our triggers, so that we can then put some of these techniques in practice. My favorite one that I do, one that I created, is the balloon exercise. So we get children blowing up the balloons, blowing all their worries into that balloon, and we talk about what we can do with the contents of that balloon. So do we pop the balloon? If that's, you know, an expression of our emotions and we're feeling really anger, is that necessarily kind to everyone around us? So we have some quite deep conversations in a really fun way. Do we hold on to, we tie the balloon up and hold on to those emotions? Well, that's holding on to those emotions that can cause us to be uncomfortable. It can cause us to be unwell over time. So again, that's not the best way. But actually, if we let the balloon go, and you can imagine we're letting this balloon fly around the room, making all the silly noises that it makes.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Then, yeah, and they're imagining letting those emotions out of the balloon and then flying away. And then we also bring in, so we've got the laughter, we've got the release of emotions there. And then we also add an extra element, which is the movement. So we get up, we look like absolute lunatics, but I love it. We get up and we stomp around and we brush all those emotions off of us, out of our hair, get rid of them so there's none of them hanging on. And that kind of visual action, you know, really makes an impact. It's something that they will remember. And even if they haven't got a balloon, we talk about balloon breathing and how they can remember that in those moments when they're starting to spiral a bit out of control. So I could list hundreds of different things I do, but that's my kind of signature. That's the one that I love.
Oh, that's really nice. And, you know, it sounds like it's perfect. And getting them moving is a good thing. So a lady I worked with when we did some stuff with Sparks, and she's Gina Bale, the little magic train lady, and she talks a lot about the protein myelin and how activity, the creativity combined, the movement, how that protein is a really important factor in how the brain works and creating all the hormones we need. So, you know, I like that idea that there's some movement, and, you know, I'm passionate about, you know, using our sensory systems.
Absolutely, yeah.
To find ways to navigate this whole response process.
Yeah, we also bring into it, we do a bit of a hot air balloon meditation as well, a bit of mindfulness within it. So it's kind of really is bringing in all the different elements that you need with it, and they'll draw their own hot air balloon and they'll imagine passing that worry to a member of their family or someone that they care about. But as I say, it just seems to really stick in their brains. It's you know, something that is really memorable, and for each child, by the end of the sessions, the parent will come away with a couple of 3 or 4 maybe different things that work really well for that child that they can then reinforce in the home. And there are, at the end of every session, I think the one thing that is kind of a bit additional that I do, if you're working in a school, you don't really have that contact with the parent. But when I'm doing one-to-ones privately, the end of each session for about 15 minutes, I'll often sit with the parent. We would both, me and the child, will demonstrate what we've done. So again, it's reinforcing it. They're teaching the parent what we've talked about. So that strengthens it. And then also the parent feels involved to then kind of carry that on while I'm not there until the following week. So there's a lot of different elements that go into it.
And it's definitely, that's really helpful, because we found with the families program, that contact with the family as a whole and having that conversation with everyone together can make huge differences for the families.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you also said soon to be author.
Soon to be, very soon to be author.
So tell me all about that, because that's exciting.
Yeah, again, when I created Positive Pants a few years ago, I really always had in my mind that I wanted to have a book. And I didn't know really at the time if that was for parents, if it was going to be around the characters that are on the pants, or what that would look like. And then very recently, it just suddenly came to me, and the Put on Your Positive Pants book was born. So it's actually published, this will date things a little bit, but the 1st of August, so next Sunday, it's officially released.
Ooh, nice. I'll have to stick a little link under on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, so it's aimed at the target age is sort of age 5 to 7.
Yeah.
And I can show you a little sneak peek of the storyboard that I have here. So
how exciting.
If you can see it very well.
I can assure you my storyboards were not that neat. And are never that neat.
I did not do this myself, can I just point out. This was for a book festival that I did at the weekend. So
excellent.
Yeah, so the idea is of the book is that little girl wakes up feeling sad one morning, doesn't really know why, which is okay. We often don't know why we have these emotions. And then mum comes in, and throughout the day they do lots of different activities to just shift her up that scale and shift the mood slightly, and just kind of introduce lots of different things that we all do in our everyday life. It's not rocket science, it's simple things that we do, but often we forget that they're the key to actually helping us through things. So in this book, we go through lots of different things that are easily accessible for everybody. There is an activity in there as well that you can do in the holidays or any time as a family or with your child on their own, all about that positive mindset. So I'm really, really excited.
So my big question is, because my big interest with everything is about fear and bias and perception. So I know from my experience that this process is terrifying in many ways, and on levels you don't really think about when you think, you think I'll do a book, and then this whole other stuff comes, and you weren't prepared for it. And what's that experience been like for you? What have your big challenges been? What have your big fears been? Or what are they coming up?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think up till now, it's been mainly, I've just been not floating. It's been a lot of hard work, but I've just been, taking each step by step. I've been so excited. I've been really proud for actually creating it. I don't think it is quite sunk in yet.
No.
I haven't got a physical copy yet in my hands. I should be getting that tomorrow, fingers crossed. Nice. And I think when I described about how excited I am, I think a lot of that feeling is mixed of nerves as well. It's kind of, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself with it because I want it to reach as many children as possible. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself for it to be seen and to be successful. I'm also very scared now that there's something that's out there in the world that is there for people to judge me, as a professional in my field, or whatever, as a person, whatever it might be. I sit and even, it's so daft, isn't it, but the things it brings up. I'm even thinking about, a couple of girls that I went to school with that didn't like me, and thinking, oh God, what would they say if they saw it? Who cares? But do you know what? It's there, and it's just stuff that you have to navigate through. And I think because I'm so busy, I think my main thing is just worrying about giving it enough time and exposure. And am I doing it the right way? But once it's out there, it's out there. And if it's not right now, I'm just trying to trust that it will land where it needs to land, and it will help as many kids as possible. And that's what's keeping me going.
And I think, I think what people, I think what's really hard for people to understand is that these are all learning experiences, and I think the perception is you're an author, therefore you must have reached a certain level of A, B or C. And the reality is, and I know lots of people now who have written books. I'm part of lots of networks of people that have written books. And the overriding opinion is that we're all professionals. We have a particular passion, and Ali Knowles really coined it once when her and I had a conversation, and she's spot on. There isn't a one size fits all. So there is a place for all of these things because our children are so very different. And we're lucky that we are in a network as well where collaboration is really encouraged. But that's not the case everywhere. No. But I think having that honest conversation about, you know what, we're actually winging it whole time, and every time wing it a bit better because of what we learnt the last time.
Yes.
So, you know, we've just done the 3rd book and I'm already planning the next 2. There are things I'll do very differently than I did on the first one. And when I have to do another print run of the first one, there are things now I will change.
Yeah.
No, and then you reach a whole nother level of pressure of exposure. So for me, the fear is, you know, is always about being visible.
Yes.
And being exposed, because it allows people to see you vulnerable, and that's not something I've ever been really comfortable with, although, you know, I do talk about it. But so for you, do you think there is that fear of vulnerability, like you said, with these girls?
I think a little, yeah, definitely a little bit of that. And I think there's almost like that kind of fear of failure and success almost. It's you know, I don't know what it is. It's just, there's just something there, and it's kind of like, oh gosh, what if this did do really well? Or and you know, again, I suppose coming from a traditional background, my dream was always to be published in the traditional sense of the word. And obviously we've done it through a different route, and we've self-published within our businesses, which I feel is the right thing, because actually one of the things that held me back was procrastinating for ages, because I didn't know how to go about the traditional route. And when the book came, it was just suddenly, right, I've just got to get this out no matter what, no matter how it's done. But actually, will that be perceived as, you know, not being as good as, you know, a traditional route? And, you know, I think ultimately my dream would be to reach that.
Definitely.
But at the moment, it's enough for me to be getting it out there. And I think I just have to, remind myself that this is actually quite a big thing that a lot of people talk about. And, you know, they say there's a book in everybody, don't they? But not everybody actually does it. So...
and I think and I think a lot of these books that cross over between a story and a resource, I still think it's a bit of a niche market. So yes, the traditional publishing would be the ideal. I know other people that have started out with traditional publishers and then have taken the control back to self-publish the rest of their books, because they weren't reaching the audience that they wanted to reach, because either the prices were hiked up. You know, self-publishing for me means that I can keep books fairly reasonable, and all right, you know, it there's pros and cons to that.
I think I like the control that I'm having over it. You can, you know, I've worked with an illustrator who is amazing, who I know completely gets me. You know, the publishing process, I can change anything at any time, and it's, you know, it is my final say. It's not, you know, it's still my baby at the moment. So there's pros and cons, aren't there, like you say, and learning in everything. But I say, you know, as long as it reaches people that need it, and, you know, hopefully it will be used in schools, and that will open up the doors for other things within the business, then that's you know, that's the main aim for me.
That. So if there's one thing you'd like to really say, one sort of thing you really want to get across to everybody before we say goodbye and finish up, what would that be?
Oh gosh,
I know I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh God, and you know I talk a lot, so
right, you can have 2. I mean, you know, just give us some passion.
I think the thing that's coming to me is, you know, for parents and for people that are working with children in any way, that have any direct influence on a child's life, which is pretty much most of us in some capacity or another, is, you know, don't leave it too late to get the support and to put these resources into place. And this isn't just me talking about my book, this is everything, you know, because actually particularly what we've experienced over the past 18 months, you know, like I said, when I was a child, I wasn't aware that I was going to have mental health issues in my late teens that related to when I was 3 years old. So, you know, we're all doing the best that we can as parents, and we need to be kind to ourselves. But I do think we have a responsibility to be introducing now there's so much on the market, you know, if it's Amanda's book, if it's my book, if it's someone else's, it doesn't matter. But find the right thing for your child and make sure they know that they have a voice, that they can express their emotions in a healthy way. And no matter how much you think your child cannot grasp that, you know, no matter how angry there are ways of actually finding the right thing for your child. So don't give up, and you know, reach them before they need it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, you know, they'll have that healthy, thriving mind that they can access these resources at times when they really need them. It's much easier for a child to learn when they're happy, when they're well, to then implement it when they're not.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I wish you all the very, very best with your book launch next week. And I shall be ordering my copy and waiting patiently for it to come. And then I'll be showing off all over Facebook and YouTube. So it's been really lovely to talk to you, and thank you for sharing your journey and your experiences. And we'll hopefully catch up with you soon, and all the very best.
Thank you very much.